Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I've been sitting here for the past 20 minutes trying to figure out exactly what I'm going to say and what I'm going to talk about as regards the movie that I want to chat about today. And I figure now that the only way to do this is just to press record and just see what happens. Um, the movie is a special one. It's the Goonies. I've been threatening to talk about this one for quite a few weeks. Um, my personal history of the Goonies is pretty checkered. The very first time I saw it would have been about 1985. I rented it on VHS and only made it through probably 15-20 minutes. I don't know whether I'd had a rough day at work. I just remember watching this thing and thinking, what the hell is this? Why are all these kids yelling at each other? Um, and as I say, I stuck it for 15 and 20 or 20 minutes and basically turned it off. I couldn't stand anymore. I thought I'm never going to bother with that one again. Um, and over the years, I've heard people talking about it, and at work especially, I've had conversations with people who grew up with the Goonies, loved the movie, and finally I decided to watch it last year, and my opinion completely changed. I did thoroughly enjoy it. Um, I'd been promising for quite a while to do some kind of a review of it on the website and also on the YouTube channel. And finally, I've got round to doing it. I did have to watch it again yesterday, just to sort of reacquaint myself with it. And again, thoroughly enjoyed it. It's perfect viewing for a rainy, dull Saturday afternoon, which is exactly what it was, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So, for those of you not familiar with the Goonies, and there won't be that many of you, it's a family adventure movie. It's set in a small town called Astoria. Astoria is the kind of town that every kid would wish they'd grown up in. It is absolutely gorgeous. It's a small coastal bay town, beautiful to look at. And the other question was, what exactly is a Goonie? I actually had to look this up. I didn't know what it was. A Goonie is basically anybody that lives in Astoria that was brought up and raised in the Goondocks. Um, it is basically where all of the not poor but the middle class people live, the fishermen, the tradesmen, and then up on the hill you've got all the rich folks living up there looking down on them and basically calling them Goonies, and that's where it came from. I just thought it was some nickname that the kids had made up for this little group that they've got going. But no, that is the story of it. That is what a Goonie is. And just to briefly explain the story, the town is about to be what we will call repossessed, foreclosed, and turned into a country club and a golf course. So everybody is basically being forced to move out. And on the day before they move, the kids are exploring up in the attic and find what is, or what looks like, a treasure map that belonged to the pirate from the 16th century called One Eye Willie, which, yes, of course it's funny. Um, and what they do is they decide to go after the treasure, um, and it's very much an Indiana Jones style romp for kids. Um, but it works. It works so well. The cast is amazing in this. You've got Corey Feldman, basically fresh from his success in Goonies a year or two before. You've got Josh Brolin, who went on to amazing success in films such as No Country for Old Men. And as a side note, somebody pointed this out to me. He is actually the son of James Brolin, who was one of the head astronauts in Capricorn 1, a movie I reviewed or talked about a couple of weeks ago. So that's an interesting little point for you. You've also got, let's see, Sean Astin, who plays the sensitive, thoughtful kid of the group, always getting his name, always getting his words wrong, getting them mixed up. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. There's a lot of that goes on. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Um, Who else have you got? Martha Plimpton, who I believe had some sort of a thing with River Phoenix a few years later, and I'm fairly sure she starred in The Mosquito Coast with him and Harrison Ford. You've got Kerry Green, who's the other female Goonie. You've got, I can never remember his name, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce it, the little Chinese kid who was Indiana Jones's little assistant in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom the year before. Short Round, I think, was what he was called in that. Who else have you got? Obviously, Chunk, who's this just effervescent, enthusiastic about everything fat kid who does the is it the truffle shuffle? It's an extraordinary cast. You've also got the Fratelli clan headed by Mar Fratelli, whose name I can't remember, and you've got the two guys, Joe Pantoliano and the other one who I can't remember either. I said this had happened, didn't I? But the film itself is amazing. It's really, really well done. The scene where they finally find the pirate ship in the underground cave, I read somewhere that the kids were not allowed to see that set at all. They were kept completely off it. And the first time they actually saw it was when they actually filmed the scene, so that the reactions on the kids' faces was absolutely genuine, of complete surprise at what they were looking at. So it was quite clever. I mean, there's a lot of amusing stories that that have sort of grown up around the Goonies that I've read over the week. Probably the best one I read was Spielberg's prank. Spielberg and Frank Marshall were actually producers on this film. They pranked Richard Donner, who was the director, famous obviously for The Omen, Superman the movie. He also directed the Twilight Zone episode with William Shatner, Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, with the little gremlin thing on the engine of the plane destroying the plane. He directed that. Spielberg decided to prank Donner because Donner had what you could call a sort of a love-hate relationship with these kids. He thought they were absolutely amazing actors when they were individually on their own, but together they were a complete nightmare. And he said to Spielberg, I can't be doing with these goddamn kids. They're driving me crazy. Can't wait to get away from them. Oh God. And all he wanted to do was go to his little retreat in, I think it was Miami, straight after filming had wrapped, and spend a few days just getting over the rigours of the filming of this thing with all these kids. And what Spielberg did is he paid for every single kid on set to go over to Miami, let themselves into Donna's house, met themselves at home, and basically be there when he turned up. Not amused. So I thought that was really sweet. The Goonies has quite a following, and it's something that I did not completely appreciate until I started talking to people about it. All I remembered of the Goonies, and I said this to a couple of people, is just a load of kids screaming at each other for 2 hours. There's no way I can stand it. And they would take every opportunity to tell me just how brilliant it was, and I've missed out on an amazing film, which is why I decided to finally take a look at it last year, and obviously my opinion had completely changed of it, which I was pleased about. But you don't appreciate the gut feeling that people have for this movie. They can usually quote lines from it. They buy the merchandise. They've got the movie on pretty much every format. They've got it, probably still got it on VHS, DVD, Blu-ray. There's a Blu-ray Titans of Cult box set coming out in a few weeks, and I'm fairly sure that any fans of the Goonies will be ordering that one. I don't think I will. I'm happy with the one that I've got, so I'm going to stick with that one. But the one thing I didn't get from this film, and I was told about this, I believe Dave Lowe told me that the one thing you won't get is the complete hit of nostalgia that you would have got had you seen it 35 years ago and enjoyed it. And I did kind of get that. Yes, I enjoyed it. Yes, I will absolutely, definitely watch it again. but the feeling that you would get, uh, sort of not seeing it for so long, I didn't quite get that, the nostalgic hit. But the film itself, superb. And I read online, I believe Caroline posted something yesterday about Mel Gibson possibly doing Lethal Weapon 5. Him and Corey Feldman have been friends for quite some years, and they met up, talked about Lethal Weapon 5, which is obviously, or was, dead in the water when Richard Donner died a few weeks ago. They basically said that Lethal Weapon 5 couldn't possibly happen now. But Mel Gibson had said that he talked to Donner before, and he was perfectly okay with maybe Mel Gibson taking the reins, with him being quite an accomplished director nowadays, thanks to movies like The Passion of the Christ. And I believe Corey Feldman actually asked him, what about Goonies 2? Because there's been a sequel, not so much in the works, but talked about for years and years and years. And I think Gibson has said that if Lethal Weapon happens, there's a very good possibility that we could do a Goonies 2. So that might be one to look forward to. The stories that I've heard of the ones that have been, or the scripts that have been submitted, basically relate to the original cast, all grown up, still living in Astoria. They've got kids of their own, and some kind of Goonie adventure that their kids go on. So it could be very, very interesting, and I would most definitely watch it. Just basically to see what they do with it. I mean, it'd be a cracking idea. I mean, there's a lot of Goonies fans out there that would say, yeah, absolutely, yeah, go for it. And there's a lot of them out there also that would say, no, please don't do it. Just leave it alone. It belongs in the 80s. It's fine where it is. So I personally would like to see it. I would very much like to see what they did with the sequel to the Goonies, whether it would be a standalone thing or a direct sequel to what happened in the first one, but we'll see. There's only one more thing to say about it, really. I mean, when you watch it nowadays with modern eyes, there are quite a few things in there that would offend the delicate sensibilities of the woke brigade and all this kind of thing. There's some pretty sort of dodgy dialogue in there. Not quite sure how I felt about Corey Feldman at the beginning talking about the drugs drawer and the sexual torture chamber up in the attic when he's talking to the Spanish maid and translating what the mother is trying to tell him. There's all sorts of other things in there as well. The treatment of sloth, it really wouldn't sit right nowadays, I don't think. But it's one of those movies that you just have to watch and take it for what it is. It was made 35 years ago. Sensibilities and opinions were very, very different back then to what they are now. And yes, obviously, some of the dialogue and certain aspects of the movie would not fly nowadays. And if they did do a sequel, I think a lot of the humour and the attitudes would not still be there. So that's maybe one reason to leave it alone. I don't know, but we'll see what they do with it. But yes, there are certain things in there that would not, that would probably not so much offend, but slightly bother audiences nowadays. But like I say, take it for what it is. It's a cracking little adventure film. It reminded me a lot of the old Children's Film Foundation movies from the 50s, 60s and 70s, the British movies. I think if the makers of the Children's Film Foundation movies had the kind of budget that they had for the Goonies, this is the kind of thing that they would have created. And there are a lot of films in the Children's Film Foundation that are very similar. It's just kids being kids, doing kids things. So, right, that's pretty much it. I don't think there's much more I can say about it. What have I had through this week, just very quickly? I had this, which we had a bit of a laugh with last night, thanks to the banter. Have you seen? And it's basically just thousands of movies that I need to trawl through. Yeah, right. And 2 books. I reviewed Clerks last week, Kevin Smith's movie. And the one thing I want to know now is more about Kevin Smith. So I bought that, which is basically a history of his movies. And also, I think it's his autobiography, Tough Shit, which I've been recommended to read, so I shall be having a look through that. And that's pretty much all I've had through this week. I will be ordering a box set of the Lethal Weapon movie after all the crap that I got last night for daring to admit that I'd not actually seen the first one, heaven forbid, or any of the sequels. So yes, I will be ordering that one. And there's quite a few others that I do need to get through. Um, I need to sort of get back a little bit of my movie credibility by watching some of these movies that I keep getting pulled up on, i.e. the Rocky trilogy, the Big Lebowski. I've not forgotten that one, guy. Blue Thunder and War Games were talked about a couple of weeks ago, and also obviously the Lethal Weapon series. So I need to get onto that, as well as quite a few other films that I want to have a chat about. So. Right, that's pretty much it for this week. I don't know what the weather's like, and I've not dared look out the window yet. But whatever's happening, have a great Sunday, folks, and I will talk to you again next week. I'm not sure what I'm going to be talking about next week. I think I'm going to go with possibly the movie version of Please Sir, the movie version of the TV sitcom, or a movie that I got through a few weeks ago that I'm dying to watch. I haven't seen it for quite a while. The Susan George movie Fright from 1971. That's a cracking movie, so I might do that one next week. So take care, folks. Have a great weekend. What's left of it, and I will talk to you all again very, very soon. Bye bye.